This episode, I'm going to be unpacking a little tiny piece of this conversation around trauma and how that relates to or influences our, process of self illumination, of self realization, of actualizing our authentic, full on alive, existence, right? Which is something that we all are wanting. It doesn't mean that we're all, constantly happy and, it's like nothing goes wrong and there are no bumps in the road. Actually, those bumps and those jostlings and those crackings are actually the very places that open us up to something greater, whether it be an illness, physical illness, a mental or emotional struggle, an event in your life. Whatever those things might be, they open us up to a broader understanding of ourselves. So I'm going to stop there. I could go on and on. This is supposed to be an introduction to this session. So we're going to keep it bite-sized. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you on the flip side. Trauma is a huge topic of interest, point of exploration in our current space right now. And it's a good thing, that we're starting to talk about these things collectively. It's all over the media. It's in a lot of not just circles of people who are, open to healing and, like the psychological community and, people being more and more open to reaching out and receiving assistance and help and support, for their emotional and mental well-being. That's amazing. And I also have some caveats, to that. For me, when I think about trauma, because I think sometimes we get lost in part of this process of healing, which actually means to make whole. That's what healing actually means. And how do we make whole? I would even go further and say, you don't make it whole, you realize its wholeness. So I'm going to just talk a little bit more about what I mean by that, by way of taking a little piece of the whole trauma conversation and talk about, I'm umming a lot. It's because it's 5:15 in the morning. I'm just letting this start to flow because it's a huge topic, but I'm going to distill it, into like a metaphor. Actually, is what I'm going to do. So we have this conversation, and I'm gonna use the window that's covered with grime, okay? And we have this little home we live in. And we might like it, we might not. Might have things in it that we enjoy, we might have, but it's our comfort zone, okay? It's what we understand about our experience, I can call it a matrix, you can call it a womb, but it's basically what we understand about reality itself. So this is our home. We live in this place day in and day out. And it's got windows and doors. And so at one point, we're like, well, why is there not fresh air in here? Or why is that, when I look out the window, I can't really see a lot of what's on the outside. And I kind of want something else. Something in here is painful. Something in here is echoing. It's the same thing over and over again. Something in here, something bad happened here, and I feel like it keeps happening again and again, and I want out. Whatever that is. And that could represent the things going on in your life. Mental, emotional, physical challenges, dis-ease. I never say disease because all things that disconnect us from the world, ourselves, universe, each other, comes from a place of disconnection. And when we are yearning to reconnect all that stuff, when we're yearning for healing and wholeness, okay, that is what we talk about when we talk about healing. At least that's how I use the word healing. So when we're looking for healing and we're not seeing where that can come from, we can't see outside of what we already know. That can become very uncomfortable. We start to get uncomfortable in our comfort zone. Or sometimes we get too comfortable in there, so we're afraid to even look out the window, but that's another thing. So we've got these windows and they're covered with grime. And so we can call that grime all kinds of things, you know. But it's basically where we can't actually see our true potential, which lies outside of what we believe is the only thing that exists. And we all do that. We all do that. The difference is if we know whether or not we know that there's something else that exists that we can continue to uncover, discover, realize, remember. Because it's already there. We're just in the little house in this huge and vast existence, in this huge and vast earth, world, cosmos. So we're in this little house and we're looking at the grime. And when we start to focus on the grime, we see, well, that bad thing happened to me. And actually, that's how we interpret it, but not how I would interpret it. I don't actually categorize things as good and bad. And one of these days, we'll unpack that too. Well, something happened to me that was painful. To me, recognize the language. Something happened that was painful. Someone said this. That's part of the grime. Someone told me this. My culture said I'm supposed to be that. I started to tell myself that. I added to the grime. I put more and more on, because it was too painful to see what I could be when I felt like I couldn't be that. I wasn't allowed. I didn't have the capability. I wasn't good enough. I was abandoned. I feel separate then. There's something better, but I can't have it. Sometimes people don't even want it because what if it didn't happen? What if it wasn't real? What if it wasn't true? What if all these beliefs that contribute to this grime, what if part of that, what if that's the truth? So there's all kinds of stuff that makes up that grime on the window. It's pretty gross and icky, and sometimes it's pretty thick, you know. And it's placed on us, like I said, by, and I shouldn't even use that word, because when I say placed on us, who's doing that to us? Is it somebody doing something to us? It's something that exists, yeah. Is there blame? I mean, if we focus on that grime, there is blame. And there can be anger, and there can be frustration, and there can be a sense of disempowerment because it's there and you didn't put it there. But how far does that get us? So this is the realization of traumatic events in childhood. It's the realization that the way we feel and how healthy we are at this present moment, a lot of it is due to that. How much we actually can see and how much we actually can't see. And when we start to focus on the grime, there is a huge, beautiful, reason for that. It leads to our liberation, our ultimate freedom. But the point of focusing on that, of what is obscuring our vision, obscuring the possibilities, of keeping us stuck inside of this comfort zone that is highly uncomfortable. By focusing on that, we can actually start to remove it. We kind of get out our cloths and we start to make a little spot. Or maybe a big spot. Maybe someone's got the hose already and it's like, I'm ready to see all of it. The squeegee, the hose, the little rag, make it a little spot. Maybe you're misting it, depending on how fast you want to go. But you can literally just wash it all away. And the point of that, the point of focusing on the grime, I'm going to repeat that, is so that you can remove it. It's not so that you can focus on it. And when we start to focus on the grime, instead of removing it, instead of becoming more clear, we get focused on the wrong thing. So we focus on it enough so that we can clear it away and become more clear and see our possibilities. And it gets brighter and brighter and brighter in that space. And even the space, if we're still in that little comfort zone, the space gets brighter. The plants grow because they have the light coming in. Right? The air gets fresher because you might just open that window. And so as we start to remove the grime rather than focus on it, if we focus on it, we might blame. And we might say, oh, that my parent did this and my, situation was that, and this is how I was schooled and society's this way. And yes, there comes that time where we can go through that process. But again, do we land there? Does that serve us to stay there and focus on the grime? Because it's in the past, man. It doesn't exist anymore unless you let it, unless you leave it there. Unless you let it, unless you recreate it. Unless you misidentify with the grime and keep telling that same story. So we wipe it away and then we open the windows and it's fresh and it's, wow, I can start to see my possibilities for my life. I can see something different. There's a whole world out there. There's a landscape, there's rolling hills, there's sunshine, there's moonshine, there's stars. An expansive sky, there are mountains, all of that stuff is there and it was always there. We just had to remove the grime and open the windows. And what's the next step? Well, you realize, if I can open the window, if I can see it, maybe there's a door here somewhere. So maybe even you get not just the courage to remove the grime, because once you see that there's so much more out there and you stop focusing on the grime, you're inspired. You don't even need courage. It has a flavor of courage, but it is more like charge. Woohoo! Just try to stop me from living my full-on life. So the windows are open. And the doors are open. And you just might go out there and have your adventures and create your new stories and be able to come into your home and out of your home whenever you want. Your home is no longer your prison. Your home becomes your nest, your landing point. Sometimes you go in just to incubate and to integrate what you've discovered being outside. It becomes your cozy cabin, your place of rest that you can always come back to whenever you want. And from there, you go and have your adventures, you live your life, you expand your awareness. So, I don't know, maybe that worked for you. that analogy, using the metaphor of the little cabin, I guess, and the grimy windows. And to fully complete that process of recognizing how we're not free, how we define what trauma means and what healing means, and how we consciously decide not to get stuck in that process and realize that wherever you're at in that process, it's a process, and that you can come through that when you can shift your focus to the possibility rather than the expectation or the past or the fear of the future. Before I tootle off, I actually think I didn't finish that. And then, so if we took the cozy cabin metaphor and the windows and seeing outside of that as our true potential, what we actually realize by going outside is that all of this home, this cozy cabin that I was talking about is actually within you. It's actually within you. So it's like the Golden Buddha, the story of the Golden Buddha, and the concrete is also the grime, right? And as we start there's a crack that happens, something shakes us up in our life. And then we see this gold that's starting to sort of shine through. And it's like, oh, it's something that we were born with, something that we are. We each have this unique genius, this inner person, within. And so that is actually within. So you realize that your home is within you. For more information about my individual and group sessions, on-demand programs, Coaching the Coaches training, and my Veil's Edge fantasy series of books, please see the show notes for links to my websites, social media, and other stuff. Do consider supporting my work on Patreon. Be sure to follow this show and follow me at Coach Carla Atherton on Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please note that this podcast is not a source for diagnosis, therapy, or treatment, but is the opinion of the host and guests. The intention to support and inspire. Each person's health is their own responsibility. May you, your family, and the people you serve be well. Thank you for playing. Thank you.